We have, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is this all comfortable with her chair and trying not to fall off the stage? Okay.
And we're videoing this, if you guys want the footage, let us know.
I do.
do.
I do for sure.
I'm very
sure you'll be good. I'm sure you'll be good.
Welcome, everybody, for the Horse Rescuers panel. Can you all hear me? I can yell. Good. And thank you all for being here. Some are new friends and some are old, but look forward to hearing about your projects and what you're doing. If you would please, I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves and 4 or 5 sentences of why these people should be here and not at McDonald's having a cheeseburger.
Well, thank you, Candace. My name is Jason Preisner. I'm with Horse Plus Humane Society, and I think the numbers would speak for themselves. We've been rescuing since 2004 is when we got our nonprofit status, and since that time we've rescued over 6,000 horses all across the United States, so I would hope that our experience speaks for itself.
Thank you.
And I'm Tawnee Preisner. Our organization is a full circle of life horse shelter. So that's kind of different than your normal horse rescue. So full circle of life meaning we're rescuing horses no matter what problems or how old they are, and we won't turn any horses out.
Hi, my name is Linda Sheehan, and I don't know if I can beat a McDonald's cheeseburger. But I'm from Becky's, I volunteer at Becky's Hope Horse Rescue. We're located in the metropolitan area of Dallas, Texas. We've been rescuing and rehabilitating and rehoming horses, donkeys, goats, pigs, sheep, chickens for about 20 years now. And I've been staff volunteer. It's totally changed my life.
That's impressive. It's hard to beat though. Those are good criteria. I'm from Horses Without Humans Rescue in Bell, Florida. We originally started in the Chicago area and moved to Florida so that we could get a bigger ranch to bring in more horses. We have 175 acres, and we are reasonably new. We became a nonprofit in 2017. So we are very new, but our numbers are far above national average, far above anybody's average. We recently won a truck and trailer through the Right Horse Initiative for our awareness campaign. It was a contest that was basically you got points for everything that you did to raise awareness within the community. And we worked tirelessly and won a truck and trailer in the process, so that's pretty darn cool.
Good job. Keep there, because I've seen all of their films, and if you haven't, at the end, we'll let you know how you can find them. I was blown away by all of them. They're all very, very, very different. 2 of them, I wept uncontrollably and had a very hard time, but they were amazing and moving and gave you hope. The other one was so charming and fun, and I sang through it. So can you speak to how you chose, and we may have some rescuers here, how you chose to do, each one of you, how you chose to film what you filmed, how you created this communication for the rest of us to see what you did.
Wow, it's kind of a really long story, so I will smoosh it up as much as I can. The founder of our rescue, Yvonne Barteau, is an FEI dressage trainer. She's trained probably 40 horses to the Grand Prix level, extremely well respected in the equine world. She had a great number of very, very, very expensive horses in her care, and the owner deserted those horses, which you would think, wow, what a terrible problem to have. Many horses were 6-figure horses, but doesn't matter how much they're worth, they all eat and they all cost money to keep. And these horses were all of a sudden, I don't know if it was 14 or 18, were in her care. And she was responsible for them financially, emotionally, physically, and she was extremely emotionally attached to these horses. She couldn't sell them because she didn't own them, they weren't papered to her. And she became aware of the problems of unwanted horses and the epidemic of unwanted horses in our country. And through that whole process, she founded our organization, Horses Without Humans. To backtrack just a little bit, in addition to being an FEI rider and trainer, she was also a theater performer. They did horse theater in Florida and pretty much all over the country. And so she chose to use that medium to bring awareness to the problem of unwanted horses and subsequently the rescue, and she continues to. And the reason she's not here today is because she is in Florida with the entire crew down there doing a Christmas show to benefit the rescue, and I mean it's huge. It's not like little; it's a big auditorium.
The name of your film?
I'm sorry.
The name.
The name of her films are Into the Spotlight 1, Into the Spotlight 2, which are both top award winners at this film festival in past years. This year we are presenting The Boneyard Starved, which is the graphic pictures you saw when you walk in, and nobody wants to talk to me because they're horrible. But it really is a movie about hope, and it's a movie, it's a call to action, that there is a problem, and it's just the way that we've chosen to bring awareness. But it's about 19 horses that we took in with an already full rescue, over full rescue, and we received a call about 19 horses that had been starved and were literally dying that day. There were horses that didn't make it already by the time we got there. And so not being able to afford it, not having time or the manpower or anything else to care for these horses, Yvonne went on faith and took them, and happy to say they all not only survived, they are thriving, they are beautiful, happy, healthy horses. Many of them are already rehomed. It's only been 3 months, but
As Jan told me, it ends well, so.
it ends
If I can do it,
extremely
you
well.
can do it. You
These
do it well.
horses were for sure going to die, no question, going to die. And they now are in wonderful environments and loved and healthy, and it's all great.
Thank you, Jan.
Well, we have several similar stories where we've had a very positive outcome, and we're really proud of that. Becky's Hope Horse Rescue, like I said, was founded about 20 years ago in a small town in Texas. And not until we moved to metropolitan Dallas about 7 years ago were we able to really grow, not just in size geographically, our borders of our property, which is about 200 acres, but just the exposure to a large population of people has allowed us to really educate the community and attract a lot more sponsors and donations, which has been wonderful because we are a nonprofit and depend on the community to donate to function. We have found that social media has been wonderful for us for growth and getting the word out there. I think we all know social media, the power of social media. Becky's Hope Horse Rescue, we've chosen a platform we've discovered that people seem to respond really well to very positive, kind messages. We've all seen the pictures out there, really graphic and very disturbing pictures of what's going on in the horse industry. We all know the issues of overbreeding. We know the issues of premier and barns. We know the issues of euthanasia. There's just so many topics. But to educate the public, we have found that a very positive social media post on a daily basis really draws in people and allows us to reach people that might not stop and peruse our webpage or our Facebook pages otherwise. So kindness and messages of hope and kindness really goes a long way, and it's been really inspiring to watch how people respond to our message.
And the name of your film?
Well, we've had 2 films that played here. The short film that played was Dreams for 2019, which was set to Pharrell's song Happy, and I think it was a pretty happy video. We had a really good time filming it up at the rescue. And then we had another video that played, Ride TV came out and did a story on our rescue horse Bubbles, who we rescued several years ago, and his story was extremely motivating for many people. A 30 plus year old gelding on its way to the kill pen with frostbite ears delivered a really powerful message to a lot of people and really made people realize that all horses have a purpose, even, old geldings.
Thank you. And Tawnee and Jason's film took me places that I've never seen, I've read, heard, and for me, it was an up and down emotional journey, but one that I wanted to take, especially since I know these two people. Hit it. Tell us about how you chose to film what you filmed.
Yeah, so our TV show is called Horse Rescue Heroes, and it's pretty much opening into a world that a lot of people don't see. And I know these horse rescuers up here too, we're all horse rescue heroes, but people don't see a lot of what we do. And so that's kind of what Horse Rescue Heroes is about. So far it's gonna be 8 episodes, and primarily it's about mentoring another organization to help their organization function better through better shelter practices, fundraising skills, because a lot of organizations do such great work out there and they're not putting it on social media like you mentioned, and they're struggling, and you have to show nowadays what you're doing and put it on social media, because otherwise people don't know and they support somebody else who is doing it. And so the film that was showed here was pretty amazing, because we were able to take a film crew into an auction and film freely in the auction. There was no hidden cameras. The auction owner was very gracious and let us go in and just film anywhere in the auction. Part of that is because we do rescue so many horses from there. And so the episode, it's very moving. Every time I watch it, I cry. Because, it's a life I've lived for 16 years and nobody's been able to see it. And in the episode that was shown here, people were able to see it. And it's very, very powerful. And, there's happy times in it, there's sad times, and, it's what people don't see when we're rescuing horses out there. Or, when people did comment, they got to see, what happens to these horses before they come to the rescues. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. What do these horses go through to get to the rescue that adopts them out?
So I can speak more from the technical perspective of it. Originally, I was not going to be the editor of the film. I was going to be more a host and just helping film as needed. And then we had hired an independent filmmaker from Montana, and halfway through filming, he got a full-time job in another state far away. And it just was not going to work out to continue to have him do the editing. So I'm like, well, I've done a lot of video in my life. I can do this. But it's been fun. It's been a challenge to try to get the emotion of what people go through rescuing horses. Because there's a lot of horrifically sad times. For the most part, I would say it's sad until you get those adoption days. But it is sad when you're rescuing horses, but you have to approach it from a point of, if all I dwell on is the negativity, I won't be able to make it as a human. And so you have to be feeding that horse the apple and being like, don't eat it all. Right. You have to have those moments where you can smile again.
And if I may say, and I think all of us watching TV films, editing is key. It's almost a different kind of writing. So the editing that you did helped tell your story and create the drama. So if any of you are doing films about things that you do, we have another filmmaker here. You know that what you leave and what you cut is almost as important as what you write and what you filmed.
So far it's sitting on, and this may be irrelevant to most people, about 6 terabytes of data. I don't know exactly how long it's about, probably 300 hours of footage. And to chop it down to a small percentage, you have to leave so much on the table, so to speak. Right. But it's true, you have to try to figure out what little bits can I get that tell as much of the story as I can.
Thank you. Why don't you hold on to it there? Okay. How do you choose the horses that you rescue? How do you make the choice? You can start here, stop your head.
She's the one that should answer that one.
So many years ago, we started rescuing. I started going to auctions in 2003. And I would go into auctions and trying ultimately to save horses from slaughter. And I would go in with the concept of, okay, I need to find a horse I can adopt out because I can't keep it forever. And we're not a sanctuary, and it was all self-funded at that point. So, I was just 18 years old. I was trying to be very careful. And so I'd go into auctions and I'd be like, okay, well, I know as long as that horse isn't drugged and lame, I should be able to find it a home. So when that horse would come through the ring, I'd buy that one, and I would just walk away and leave all the other horses there. And it was in 2007, I believe, I went to one auction, and there was these two extremely old sweet horses. One was lame, one had Cushing's. They were very bonded, and I was loving on them, and I'm like, oh, you're so sweet. And I knew I couldn't get them because I couldn't adopt them. And I'm like, somebody will give them a nice home, I told myself. And I know a lot of us rescuers do that. And when the horses went through the ring, they went super cheap. And I was like, oh, I hope somebody nice got them. And after the auction, I watched them load up on the slaughter truck. And that just really hit me that the way I was going about rescuing was wrong. Those horses needed my help just as much as the horse I did rescue. Even though it may be just being there for them in the end. And so up to that point, I had gone in and was very choosy about who I rescued. And then it just really hit me that the way we were rescuing wasn't the right way. We needed to help all the horses we could that are in jeopardy of going to slaughter. And so now when we go to auctions, we just rescue as many horses in that slaughter price range as we can. We raise money beforehand, and we don't pick and choose. It's just whoever we can end up rescuing. And there are a lot of horses that we rescue that do need humane euthanasia. Their owners should have humanely euthanized them. Instead, they dumped them in an auction to get a couple $100. And that is very, very difficult. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Horse Plus, I heard they kill horses. But we're stepping in for those horses when their owners walked away. And somebody has to be there to make those tough decisions with the veterinarian on the quality of life for those horses. So we do rescue a large amount of horses every year. We're talking in the hundreds. And, one person's like, well, I'm against, somebody going in and rescuing a bunch of horses from an auction, but I support if they go in and get horses for euthanasia. And I'm like, okay, well, there's been an auction where we went in and rescued 20 horses that all needed euthanasia. And that's extremely difficult. And we could have gone and just said, we're not going to rescue any of those horses because we don't feel like we want to deal with that. But for us at Horse Plus Humane Society, every horse, no matter its condition, age, is precious and needs dignity and respect. So we don't pick and choose. We just, our doors are open to whoever wants to come in and whoever has the ability.
Linda, how do you choose?
Well, it's very difficult, and we don't have the answer to what's the right choice to make, unfortunately. And first, I commend you for starting in on this when you're 18 years old. That really speaks volumes about your character. I think that's really wonderful. We totally believe that all horses deserve a dignified death, and that's, I think, been some of my most memorable rescues from kill lots is where we've gotten some horses that were advertised as being rideable and 15 years old, and then they end up being 28 with failing organs and have to be put down immediately. But when that happens, we're thrilled that we were able to bring that horse home with us and give it a dignified death rather than what its potential fate would have been. But no, we don't have the answer to what's the best scenario to rescue. Is it auction? Is it the kill pen? Is it the owner surrender? I think what we all feel best about is when we get a phone call from a citizen in some area of the state where they say, hey, there's these horses out here that are starving, and we drive by them every day and no one's feeding them and no one's advocating for them. And for us to be able to step in and help with that situation and bring it to a positive resolution, I think makes us all feel really good, because the auction and the kill lot and owners are, I don't know. It's just, it's really difficult. It's emotionally, it is a very hard thing to deal with, but I tell you what, the best thing in the world that happens to me is when we do rescue a horse and bring it home, and yes, the ultimate goal is to adopt it out, but there's nothing that makes me much happier than being down in a pasture, sitting by the hay ring, watching a horse blend in with the herd, chewing on its hay happily, and just feeling safe, and just watching it be a horse when it came from a situation where it was living like no horse should live. But yeah, I don't have an answer to, we don't have a definite path that we follow on who to rescue. It just, the stories come to us and we just take the ones that at that time feel like the right one to take on.
Okay.
Different situations. Yeah.
It truly is. It's, you know, there are no easy answers, and I commend you. It's very impressive. You know, we talked about it in one of the other panels that I was on. You know, sometimes all you have to offer them is that final gift. You know, a peaceful ending, and it's not something anybody wants to do, but our job is to be their advocate, and that's that word we take very, very seriously, to provide representation to a being that has no ability to speak for themselves, and it's really a difficult thing. As far as what our focus is, as far as our mission statement and things like that, I think that we're a little bit different than other rescues in that our director, our founder, our primary people in our rescue are all horse trainers. And their goal is to get horses trainable so that they're not so at risk to end up in an auction, and then to provide a good pairing with a person that's going to then, of course, treat them as they should be treated, keep them for life, and just be altogether successful. And so as far as what is our goal is to keep horses out of the slaughter pipeline. We have horses of every age. We have horses of, you know, extremely aged that we are simply providing sanctuary for. That is not our focus, but when a need arises, who can say no? You know, it's just how it is. We have babies, we have everything in between, but we really work very, very hard to provide the training that is going to enable that animal to have a successful life.
Thank you.
Very
What do you need to know, or what do you need to be, or who do you need to be in order to do what you all do, to be a rescuer? What's inside you? Who do you need to be in order to do this? Besides of loving horses, we're all here because we are attracted to horses and care about them, but it takes something more than that to be a rescuer.
It's kind of funny. I was coming down talking to a friend who's not on Facebook, which we as well, social media is huge. And she really didn't know about the horses at the boneyard and a lot of what I've been doing lately. And it was funny because I felt the need to prepare to be here. I've never been on a panel, and I said, I don't know when I became an expert. I don't know how that actually happened. When did that happen? And she said, well, what's been going on? And I kind of just went through the story, and then I got on my quote-unquote high horse about slaughter and you know, people not representing horses and not caring for horses and all the things that I've been talking about this weekend. And she's like, well, I'd say you did pretty darn good. She said, just say that. I'm like, okay, cool. You just become that. I don't think anybody made a conscious effort to go, I'm going to become a horse rescuer. There's something inside you that once you become aware of the issue, you feel the need to act, at least me. I can't not act. I know now what happens. I've seen the videos, I know what happens to these horses, and I can never go back to be that person that I was before I knew. And so now I feel a responsibility to those animals.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's initially when I first started working in horse rescue, I thought the demographic of a horse rescuer was middle-aged women who were empty nesters and needed something to nurture. And I still think that's true to a certain extent, that we have men, boys, girls. We have a huge variety of people. I think as people become aware of what horse rescue is all about, they want to get involved. what's most gratifying to me, being up at the ranch, is when the teenage kids come up and start to work with the horses and learn about that, because my fear for the future is who is going to take over as all of us get older, and watching the young kids get involved is really special to me.
Thank you.
So I definitely didn't go to an auction to become a horse rescuer when I was 18, 19 years old. I went there to get a horse, and I saw a need after I rescued that first horse. And I was like, if I hadn't have gotten this horse, she's an awesome horse. She would have been sent to slaughter. And so that's why I made the difficult decision, because I was fully intending on just keeping her as my horse, is rehoming her and taking the funds and going back to get more horses. And you couldn't have taken that 19-year-old girl and put her where I'm at today at auctions. I would have been completely lost. I think a lot of it is it starts out as a little seed. You see a problem, you want to help, and it can just grow into a huge sequoia tree because you keep wanting to give. But one thing that's very important as a rescuer, maybe you're interested in becoming a rescuer or something, is that you have to take time for yourself, and you don't want to get compassion fatigue, because it is a serious thing that people are excited, they start rescuing, about 5 years in, they're burnt out, they're done, and learning how to cope with that. And we see horrible things as rescuers, just gut-wrenching. But being able to process it, talk to other rescuers, being able to vent to them, it helps. And just staying focused on the positive, all those adoptions that happened, those great adoption updates. And as adopters out there, sending those adoption updates into the organization about the horse you adopt. There's nothing better than that. It makes it all worth it. There's probably some people out there, I'm gonna go out and be a horse rescuer. But I think for most horse rescuers, it just evolves.
Please, Jason.
So to be a successful horse rescuer, you have to embrace the irregular sleep habits. You have to enjoy missing meals. If somebody invites you to go on a Tough Mudder or a Princess Mud run, you just look at them a little strange, you go back to work because you're already there. But I think it takes more than that. It takes understanding that as humans, we have domesticated horses. They are reliant on us. And we need to give of ourselves to take care of them, even if it's uncomfortable.
Thank you. Well, go ahead and keep it. I have so many questions, and we'll all have time to talk to each other and ask questions. But because I know Tawnee, and I'd like all of you, if you have an answer to this or explanation, to let everybody know. I've never been to an auction, and most of us haven't. When I was talking with you, Jason and Tawnee, and you told me about the horses that used to be pets that have an expectation, and that sometimes if you have to make a decision, if you're running out of money, which one are you going to take? And you explained to me why you might go for the pet because of what could happen at auction. Would you share that? Because that was something I never thought about.
So this is diving deep into horse rescue scenarios and what you face at auctions. And I've been going to auctions pretty much over the last 16 years, every month. So I've seen a lot, and this is very difficult to talk about, but it is the reality of it. There's about 70,000 horses being exported out of the United States for slaughter. And you can have maybe a more feral type horse that's not really handled. And then you have the 15 to 30-year-old pet horse. And that horse at auctions, and I'm not talking about the little tiny rinky-dink auctions that are, have a couple horses there. I'm talking about auctions that have 100+ horses. And they're moving those horses down different alleyways and stuff. The old pet horses, they have no clue what to do. Or maybe a thoroughbred or, big lick, Tennessee show horse. They don't know. They're wanting somebody to show them the way. You take more of a feral horse, they're going to run down the alleyway. They're trying to escape from pressure. And so it is easier, I hate to say this in this way, but for more feral type horses in the slaughter pipeline because they're reacting to moving away from pressure. You take a domesticated pet horse, we've taught them, we're here for you, we're going to show you where to go. And so you get those horses in the slaughter pipeline and they get beat in auctions, they electrocuted, they don't know what they're doing there and they're extremely confused. So if it comes down to, 2 horses, and our funds are almost depleted, who we're gonna rescue? We're gonna rescue the horse that isn't going to make it in the slaughter pipeline because all of its life it has been trained to trust people, and then people have turned their back on that horse and are shoving it down alleyways, and its last moments are moments of complete confusion and betrayal. And so we want to rescue those horses as we can because everything they've been taught is stabbing them in the back.
Thank you. Do you two have anything to say or experience on that?
Really.
I can't really add to that. It's like
Okay.
welling up.
Now that we're all in tears. Okay, you don't do this because you like being miserable and sad and crying all the time. Please share with us one of your favorite happy stories, success stories, something that you carry with you when it gets tough. And with a horse name, but we want to be personal. Or make up a horse name.
Well, I guess I have to say the story of Bubbles is the one that gets me the most. Bubbles is the horse that he was about a 30-year-old gelding with frostbite ears that Becky's Hope Horse Rescue went to a Louisiana kill lot to get some donkeys. And as we were loading him on the trailer, Bubbles decided that he was going to walk right on up the ramp and come along with the donkeys. He decided that they needed guidance on how to handle the trailer ride home or something, I don't know, but we couldn't resist Bubbles. We bailed him out and brought him home along with us and back to Texas. And we posted his story on Facebook when we got him home, and people were so interested in his situation that the post went viral. And from that point on, we had a Facebook page. I wrote a book about him, but he started posting on Facebook daily with his words of wisdom, spreading words of kindness, the power of hope, just delivering a message of how one old horse has value. He's not just, beat up old gelding that's going to be sent to slaughter. He's a 30-year-old gelding that's been through a lot in life, and he has a lot to tell us youngsters, and we can learn a lot from him. And me, myself, I learned a lot just writing his words of wisdom. Sometimes if you tell yourself something long enough, you'll start to believe it yourself. And I kept writing his message of kindness and hope and started believing that kindness and hope is the answer to a lot of things.
Thank you. Jan?
That's a really tough question because I'm sure like you, there's so many that just, you're so happy, so incredibly happy when they find their person. And I visually, when I'm kind of getting down, start thinking of it, I just have to close my eyes and I think about all those trailers going out of the property with a horse and an excited new owner and the great times they're gonna have. But I think if we had to nail it down to one, there's a horse named Trooper. And Trooper came in with the boneyard. He was an aged, what we learned eventually was he is a Bashkir Curly. He's a Bashkir Curly.
I don't know what that is.
That's a whole nother discussion. It's a pretty rare breed. And he's an aged horse. He's aged, and he just was in such poor condition. And some of the younger ones, started to already really start to recover from their ordeal. And of course, the older ones, it takes a lot longer, and you have to be so much more careful. Even with something as simple as worming, you just have to be so careful. And so Trooper was really struggling to put any weight back on, and a lovely, lovely woman named Fran stepped in and Fran did not adopt him. She did a permanent foster because she is so concerned. She's a senior retired woman, and she's concerned that she doesn't want anything to ever happen to him, that if something happened to her, he would somehow end up back in the slaughter pipeline. So she did a permanent foster, and if anything, of course, God forbid, did ever happen to her, that horse comes right back to us. But she's just provided the most incredible environment and wonderful updates, and he's doing fabulous, and it's just the greatest story ever.
May I share or feed in something that I saw on your film with that last group that came in the boneyard? And sometimes for me the victories are small. When I saw the condition of the horses, I thought, and there's just no way this isn't going to happen. Feeding them Carol, just trying to keep them alive. But there was one that was a dark horse, and that you were trying to get him up on his feet, and managed to get him, this poor weak thing, up on his feet. And then the next frame or a few frames later, he's not only walking, he's not only trotting, and I heard the voice say, he's cantering. And he cantered. A horse cantered. He was on the ground. And I think, I know I will always carry that when I wonder, is this really worth it, or can you really save these? That horse got up and cantered. Was there a name for that horse?
That horse is Rain.
Rain.
Rain went down so many times. The kids, and I say kids because I'm old, but the young people on the farm got really, really good at picking that horse up and putting her back on her feet. And we got some flack from people on Facebook who thought that Rain should be euthanized, and that Rain should be in a sling, and people have opinions, and we did our best, and Yvonne has great gut instincts for what to do and how to do it, and that horse, I can't even count how many times that horse went down, and those kids had to get out there and lift up a horse. Even an emaciated horse is pretty darn hard to get up off the ground and get back on her feet. And so yeah, in the film, when Rain canters, you can hear Yvonne's voice is just crackling, and knowing her so well, it huge lump in my throat, and she's literally in the golf cart yelling, she's cantering, and it was our morning news segment that we do at the farm every day for Facebook, and literally people around the world celebrated that canter. We had thousands of likes on that particular post, and messages, and our money came, we had money coming in, we had products from our Amazon wish list, and that particular little victory was so celebrated. And that's what this is about. It truly is.
I'd like to add to something.
Yeah, no, I want to hear about your successes.
Well, this is a little bit off of what she's saying.
Do what you want.
So what you're saying about people kind of criticizing about, the horse is down, you should euthanize it. Something that people don't get, it's easy to say anything on Facebook, is that horse will almost tell you when it's time.
Absolutely.
And so there's been horses at our shelter, it's like, let's just keep trying because the horse is trying. And so if you're out there watching on Facebook, don't just jump to conclusions about what you think should happen, because these rescues are working with their veterinarians. They're trying their best for that horse, and you're not in their shoes, you're not seeing what they're seeing. So, I just want to commend you for keeping that going with that horse.
Absolutely, and she was saying, and Yvonne says that, I don't know if it made it in the film, but in one of our morning news segments, she said, no, this horse wants to live. She wants to live. We would be trying to pick her up, and she's got her face in the bucket going, wait 1 second, let me just get something to eat, and then we're going to get me back on her feet. So.
And there's lots of times where the veterinarian's like, it's totally appropriate to make the call now. But as caregivers of these animals, sometimes it's like, we can see the horse fighting, and we want to keep fighting with them. So
You've also had the situation where we'll do the happy story.
okay, so I'll do the happy story now, but I just wanted to.
The situation where you got criticized because of resources in the health of a horse, that you opted to send it on its way and then get criticized for making that decision. You can speak to it or not, but it's easy to criticize.
Which one do you want?
All right, yeah, and then talk about your happy story.
Okay, I'll talk about that in my happy
Yeah, that was
story.
the one.
So, I think it's basically what I was saying off of, what we were just talking about with horses. We sometimes have a horse, and Facebook is great, but people can see a horse and like, but it looks so perfect. They don't understand every step that horse takes is agony for that horse.
Was that the walker?
And we might be able to
Sorry.
to fix that in 30, well, not 30 years, but 5 years from now, there might be extreme rehab for that horse. And is that horse 30 years old? And what's the likelihood for that horse? And so making tough decisions is very difficult. The walker that she's talking about is one that was surrendered to us that had been in the big lick world. Its back pasterns were touching the ground every time it walked. And what they don't talk about in the big lick world very much is there's like 70% of that horse's weight is on the back legs, sliding up behind the
When they're doing.
when they're doing the big lick. And that's devastating for those joints, the tendons, everything. And so we see a lot of big lick walking horses in Tennessee that are literally just falling apart. And that horse was one of them. And, we have to make these hard calls and put, some horses to sleep. Or, if we go to an auction, maybe rescue 20 horses at one time that needed all euthanasia. I mean, that's devastating, but, there was 100 horses there. And you saved everyone you could from that horrible fate. And I think a lot of people might not grasp the reality of it because they're not actually seeing what we see as rescuers. But my happy story, because those are much better. I like dwelling on the happy stories. So I'm going to share one that happened this year at our shelter. So we rescued a Belgium used up Amish horse at an auction. His name was Felipe. He had a lot of lameness issues. He just, sweet old guy. We just loved him to death. But he was really skinny, and we see a lot of horses have depression when they've been ripped away from everything they've ever known, and they're ran through an auction, and they feel mistreated. And so he was at our shelter. We put him in a 10-acre quarantine pasture, and he just stood under a tree. He wouldn't go out and graze. He just would sit there. And I'm like, he needs to be out there eating. You would have to take food to him. And so the next auction, and it wasn't on purpose, it just happened to work out, there was a great big Belgian mare, and we rescued her. She was all skinny. And Felipe would have typically just been coming out of quarantine because his 30 days was up. But we were like, let's just keep him in quarantine longer. And let's put Grace out there with him because, she would look like another horse that he could have pulled a team with or, a wagon and stuff. So we put her out there, and it was a miracle just watching him transform. They were together side by side in the pasture, just eating and having a wonderful time. And it was like, yes, they're gonna make it. But then Grace had some health concerns, and she had a huge mass developing on her neck, and we had multiple veterinarians look at it, and at first they all thought it was cancer, and they're like, we need to put her down. And I was like, oh, what's it gonna do to Felipe? He's finally happy, and she's happy, but here's this problem. And what had happened was she had been injected with something on that side of the neck which caused an abscess. And it was mistreated as cancer at first, and it was an abscess. So we got it taken care of, and obviously with the abscess, and they still had lameness issues. They were high maintenance horses, but they loved each other, and they were just happy in their pasture together. And a veterinarian came forward and said, I would like to adopt both of them, and I will give them all the care they need for their life. And they were transported up to their new home, and they had this beautiful barn, and they're going to live out their life there. And that stories like that just make it all worth it. It went from, we don't know for sure if he's going to make it, to yay, we've got both of them happy, to her not making it, and then getting the perfect home. And that's what it's all about.
Jason, I'm sure you have your own.
Originally going to talk about Phoenix. He was the most emaciated horse I think we ever rescued that ended up surviving. he was just left in his pasture when his owner left out of the country due to, circumstances beyond their control. And he was just left in his paddock, dry paddock out in California, no food, no water. And when he came to us, he was a body score of 1. And, his hair was falling out. His body couldn't even maintain his hair anymore. And over time, we were able to rehab him. He, of course, was under vet supervision from the start. And he recovered, and he lived with us until arthritis had to take him a couple years ago. But he was just the sweetest, gentlest horse you could ever meet. And it was just amazing. It was early on in our rescue days, and it was just amazing. It was a good lesson that no matter how skinny they are, if they want to live, there's a way.
Thank you. Go ahead, no, hit and keep it. I want to make sure we have time for you guys to talk to each other and for the audience to ask questions. But if I was going to pull the plug on you right now, what would you like the audience to know, the people that will see the video that's being made? What do you want the rest of us to take away from listening to the 4 of you today?
One thing I would say is, we're in the horse rescue industry. We see the negative side of it so much, but there's a beautiful side of the horse industry too. And let's not lose focus on the families, on the professionals, on the people who love their horses, take care of their horses. Most people are not bad people to their horses, even though we see the bad every day. Most people love their horses, and we need to make sure we keep our focus on the good in life.
Yeah, it's always almost therapeutic for me coming to these type events because I see so many people so passionate and love horses so much and take excellent care of them. So it's good to come away to different horse events and just see the other side. But one thing I would just leave with you is if you are on Facebook and you see a rescue asking for donations to rescue a horse, even donating $5 can make a difference, because if we're all doing a little bit to chip in, great things can happen. So supporting those organizations, either across the United States or in your backyard, but just all of us horse lovers coming together as a community and saying we want to put an end to horse slaughter, and we're going to support rescues with $5, $10, whoever they are. Let's just band together as a horse community and support our horse rescuers so they can make a difference.
Definitely, I think everyone just needs to take it upon themselves to educate everybody they can about the plight of the American horse, or horses in general. Horses have been a part of our history and so important to the development of man forever, and for what's happening to them now to be allowed is just, it's hard to even imagine. I think a lot of it, though, is because people are simply unaware of what's happening to the horse. So I think for everyone to educate their friends and family and let them know what's going on and what they can do to help with the situation. And the main thing that they can do is donate, because funding is the biggest obstacle that rescues face. There's a lot of people that start a rescue that don't last very long because they find out that there's a lot more to it than just having some property and being able to carry a few horses on it. You need money to operate.
Thank you.
Great minds think alike. As soon as you said, what's that final thing? I thought we haven't even talked about finances, which is the basis of everything. If you don't have money, you can't do this. And it's an incredibly complicated business, but as with any business, you need financial stability in order to do your work. And it's really hard to have that, maintain that, have consistency in that. I don't think that most people realize the cost from feed and mortgage and tractor maintenance and gas and just everything that goes into it, salaries if you have employees. Property taxes, not only just getting the horses. It's incredibly difficult. And going back to your thought that most people are good and treat their horses well, I couldn't agree more. This is a great country. We love our animals. We respect our animals as a rule. The main thing that I would just put with that is that we do need awareness, because a lot of good people don't know what's happening after they are thinking they're rehoming free to a good home on Facebook or Craigslist or whatever. They don't know, so we need education and we need money.
Thank you. Hold on to that. If anybody here that's watching this or in here would like to help, volunteer, send money, know where to find your film, contact you to get more information, how can we all reach each one of you and also see your films?
Horses Without Humans on Facebook. We're pretty easy to find. If you could just remember that name, Horses Without Humans, Facebook. Horseswithouthumans.org is our website, but you can get through it through Facebook. If you remember the name, hit Google, you'll find us. Or you're on Facebook, you'll find us. And we try really hard to be in front of everybody at all times. So just look for us. And our film will be up either tonight or tomorrow. I'll have it up on Facebook. And I have to rely on other people to put it on the website, so I'm not quite sure when that'll happen. But it'll be out there. And The Boneyard Starved is the name of it. You should be able to probably Google that. But it is currently already up on Vimeo. So you can look for it there.
And do watch it. You can deal with it. And to watch Rain Cantor is it's Christmas. Go ahead.
Go to beckyshope.com for our webpage, or we can be followed on Facebook at Bubbles Rescue Horse.
Thank you.
It's Horse Plus Humane Society, horseplus.org, Horse Plus Humane Society on Facebook. And our reality TV show is Horse Rescue Heroes, and it'll be on Amazon Prime in the beginning of 2020.
Any questions out here from the audience? Something? Questions? Do you have anything that you want to ask each other or ask the audience?
I haven't followed it for a couple years. Is there still a big problem in Florida of people stealing horses and illegally butchering them?
I don't know. I live in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
I work remotely.
Okay.
I did see just last week that there was another horse stolen in Florida and butchered, so it still is a
Yeah,
problem.
Bruce had mentioned something about that as well.
Do any of you know anything about that? Because I didn't. Do you feel like talking
So
about it?
it's a black meat market for horses in Florida. They're not stealing them to take them to an auction. That's a lot of what people think is that somebody steals them, they take them to an auction, they make $300-400, and they go. In Florida, there's a unique situation where there's a black market for horse meat, and so people aren't going to an auction to get a horse to butcher it. They're sneaking into people's yards. And in this last case, it was actually on video, so they have a video of the person sneaking around the barn, looking in the stalls, picking out the fattest horse, and taking it away into a field, and it was butchered out there. And it's all evil, but these people are going into barns where little kids have their horses and taking their hopes and dreams away from them. So it's just horrendous. It needs to be stopped, but I think law enforcement's trying everything they can. It's something that happens, and horse owners, definitely put up those security cameras. We need to keep our horses safe.
Any other questions for each other? Any other? Yes, Ryan.
So, obviously there's, like you said, I think 70,000 horses are shipped out, to market to be slaughtered. I'm guessing Mexico's where they mainly go. Canada.
But
You guys obviously do amazing work in here. I'm shocked about the numbers of horses that you're taking in and you're able to treat and help. But 70,000 is a huge number, right? So what is the other end of this? You're at the end of helping these horses. What's the other end of stopping this, or even like you said, some horses are just in bad shape. They do have to die, which is sad.
Yeah.
But it's the truth. So what's the other end of it?
Awareness and the SAFE Act. Contact your congressman regarding the SAFE Act.
Overbreeding is
I
a
was gonna say
huge
responsible
problem.
breeding.
Yeah, well, because I guess that's kind of the other part of my question is you can legislate horses not to die, and they just made
that's true.
they just federally ban animal cruelty, right? That's not people are still gonna do bad things. Like,
Yeah, so when we first started out, like I was, a teenager, I'm like, okay, how are we going to rescue horses? What's the right way to do it? And we looked to the dog and cat industry, the animal welfare sheltering of dogs and cats, because the horse industry is 25 years behind the dog and cat industry when it comes to welfare and caring for our animals that end up in bad situations. So, ultimately how we came into this is, okay, the dog and cat industry, welfare industry, they've got solutions. What are these solutions? How are they handling it? Because we're not exporting dogs and cats out of the United States for slaughter, but we are our horses. So, and as a lot of rescues don't like to look at this, is, end of life issues happen. I mean, sadly, 10 out of 10 die on this earth. Everybody. I mean, we have to think about it. We have to look at it. And so for our organization, the way it's done is, we accept any horse, no matter its age, problems. If it needs humane euthanasia, it's humanely euthanized. There, at the very beginning, like 25 years ago with dog and cat industry, there was 25 million dogs and cats getting euthanized every year. It's dropped to still a staggering 8 million dogs and cats that are unwanted and euthanized every year. 10 years ago, there was about 250,000 horses being slaughtered every year. It's dropped to 70,000. So it's dropping with public awareness and more responsible breeding, but it's going to continue taking that. But what our kind of goal and mission in mentoring other organizations is, we have to be able to accept horses that even need euthanasia into our programs and do the right things for them. And until, that really happens, even, legislation getting passed and stuff, we have to be able to step forward and say, okay, here's a humane solution if you can't afford to have your horse humanely euthanized at a veterinarian. Most horse owners can, but 70,000, when you take all the thousands and thousands of horses that are in the United States, it's a small number. If it was just 15% of breeders cut back, that 70,000 wouldn't even be there. So it's educating, teaching horse owners to be responsible, and also teaching the rescues, we need to step up. We're here in the welfare world. We need to have a solution. So when they're like, okay, so what's going to happen if we close the borders? Us rescuers will have the knowledge to step forward and say, you know what, we as a welfare organization across the United States are going to step up and have humane solutions for these horses.
Please, and this will be the last one.
Okay, so I'm a numbers guy. I was not raised around horses, so while I'm very emotionally attached to them, I can also look at them from a business standpoint and say, what's the raw data? So out of 70,000 horses, it would take approximately $200 a horse, local variants included, to euthanize and dispose of each of those horses. So that's $14 million. $14 million sounds like a huge number, but it's not.
Yeah.
On a national scale, $14 million to completely eradicate horse slaughter is a small number.
Thank you. No, I'm very happy that we're here.
Can I say something, if that's?
If you can, well, no, Diana's signaling to me. If you could all take the conversation out there, yes, we'd love to continue the conversation. I want to thank the audience for being here. Please talk to your friends and tell them this video will be available, and you guys, my heroes, you take my breath away, and thank you for coming here and sharing everything that you've done.